If you're looking for the ultimate leveling kit for your 2019 to 2024 5.7 liter powered Ram 1500, then the Pro-Truck Coil-Over Kit from Eibach is going to be your solution. This is a bolt-in front coilover setup that is designed for a better stance and better performance in one slick package. With adjustable height, excellent ride quality, and more performance, this really is a no-compromise option. Now, since this is a set of front coilovers, it is going to give your truck more height in the front end, essentially functioning as a leveling kit. And these are actually height adjustable too, using the threaded perch down here on the bottom. They can be run anywhere from your stock ride height up to about 3 inches of total lift, so you get a lot of adjustability. Now, with everything set to its highest setting, you can get up to 33-inch tires on the truck without having to make other modifications. Any larger or with really high offset wheels though, you're likely going to run into rubbing issues and have to do some trimming. Also important to note that if you are running these at stock height or at any of the lower settings, you will need to adjust your tire size accordingly. As you might expect from a coilover too, they come fully assembled just as you see them right here on the table. So you get new springs, new top mounts, and all the stuff that you need, making them a bolt-in solution. And they do come packed with all the benefits of Eibach's Pro-Truck 2 Coilover 2.0s. This is a nitrogen-charged monotube damper setup that is designed to give you a great balance of ride quality and control, whether you're running down the street or down the trail. That is thanks to the variable force valving technology baked in, which utilizes a specially designed valve stack inside of the damper to smooth out bumps and allow you to stay in control of the truck. Now, they also allow for increased overall travel too, especially since you're able to adjust the height. So you're gonna get better damping and more performance whether you're on the street or going down a washboard dirt road. Either way, this is gonna be a great upgrade for your truck, and it's gonna make it drive the way that you want it to with the height that you're after as well. Construction, as you might expect too, is also a standout. The bodies of the shocks are made from 6061 T6 billet aluminum, and the mounting points are also made from that same aluminum, but they're anodized for a cool look and some extra protection. Inside, you're gonna find 46mm pistons, heavy-duty zinc-coated cylinders, and a nitro steel shaft. The springs are made from your typical coil spring cold wound steel, so they've not been heated up and subsequently weakened, and they're finished with a powder coating to keep them protected against rust and corrosion. Plus, you get new aluminum top mounts as well, so for a set of coilovers, these things are actually not all that heavy, but they are super strong and they're very well put together. Pricing comes in at about $1,100, and that puts them pretty much right in line with other coilover kits, so it makes them actually a pretty good value for money, especially considering the height adjustability and the additional performance. That is a serious price, but this is a serious bit of kit, and to get this kind of feature set from other coilovers, you'd likely have to spend quite a bit more in most cases, so you can save a little bit of money and you get something that you know is going to perform very well. Installation gets a 2 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and the job should take you around 3 hours to complete. While this is a bolt-on kit that will simply replace your factory struts, and there is no need for a spring compressor, getting in there and getting everything adjusted will take some time, so just plan for that. But overall, this is pretty straightforward. That said though, let's head on out to the shop and we will walk you through the install process step by step.
All right, for this install, you're gonna need a 1/2-inch impact driver, a pry bar, a 21mm wrench, 16mm wrench, a 14mm wrench, and also a 18mm socket, a 21 and a 24mm socket, a clip removal tool, and a hammer. Not shown on screen, you will need a floor jack, a set of jack stands, and or a pole jack. Today we're going to be installing a front coilover kit on our Ram, but first we're going to watch a quick uninstall video, and we'll meet you here when you get back.
First things first, guys, of course you want to get your truck up in the air, whether you're using a lift or if you're working on the ground with the jack and jack stands. Now I got my 22 socket here and my air tools. I'm going to get this wheel out of the way so we can get started. First thing we're going to do with the wheel out of the way is disconnect a couple of ABS line clips. That way, when we're lowering down our entire spindle, it's not putting extra pressure on our brake lines. Now, this line here, the ABS line and the brake line are connected. So we're going to pull back on this plastic clip to disconnect and slide those guys out. Follow the ABS line up and it's connected to the upper control arm. We're going to wiggle that guy back and forth to disconnect it. Follow it back down to the spindle and there's one more to pull out. All right, now on the back of the spindle, you'll see this metal clip. It's more of an S-shaped. We're just gonna wiggle this rubber grommet out of that. And now you can see this whole thing's loose and has a lot of slack. Next step, we're gonna pick up our 21mm deep socket and we're gonna loosen it and remove the nut holding on our tie rod end. Now what I like to do is once I have that nut off, pull the tie rod end out, and I like to put the nut back on just so we don't lose it. Next, we're going to remove the bottom bolt of our strut. Now, it's a 21mm bolt head with a 15/16 nut on the opposite end. So I've got my wrench on the nut there and my 21 on the bolt head. We're going to get this guy off. Now, we may need a hammer to just tap this out, but if you can wiggle it out, you can do that now. All right, next we want to remove the bottom of our sway bar end link nut and the upper control arm to spindle nut. Those things are going to have the entire spindle drop down, or the lower control arm as well, and we want to make sure we have that weight supported so it doesn't drop down on us. So if you're working on a lift, grab a pole jack at this point. If you're working on the ground, a hydraulic jack will do the trick. All right, next up we're going to grab an 18mm deep socket and loosen and remove the bottom nut of our sway bar end link that connects to the lower control arm. Now in theory, you could remove the top portion that connects to the sway bar, but I find it easier to do it this way just because there's a lot more room to work with and I can get an impact gun on here. So now we can take the 18 and remove it. With this out of the way, when we go to lower this thing down, the sway bar won't stop it from going as low as we need it. All right, so next we want to tackle the upper control arm to the spindle bolt. Now when we're trying to loosen it, this is going to rotate back and forth. In order to keep it from doing that, to make our lives easier, I'm just going to take this nut off and put our tie rod end back on. Now we don't have to tighten it down, but that'll keep it from moving around too much and help us out. With your lower control arm still supported, grab a 13/16 wrench or a 21, and you're going to go in here and break this upper control arm to spindle nut loose. We have this loose. I'm going to bring the nut down to a couple of the last threads. We're not going to completely remove the nut just yet. As you can see, the spindle is still attached to the upper control arm. We need to grab a hammer and break this guy loose so it'll jolt free. If you completely remove this nut, that'll break free and it'll drop down. So this is going to help catch it. Then we'll come back and remove it. So we're going to grab a hammer and tap on the actual spindle. You don't want to hit the upper control arm. You don't want to risk damaging the bushing. So we're going to hit this side right here on the spindle. All right, so you saw us break that loose. Now we can remove our nut. I'm going to grab a pry bar and put it on the coil and pull down on the upper control arm. That way we can disconnect them. Let's work that nut off. All right, I'm going to drop that off to the side for now. You want to grab the spindle and slowly let go of the upper control arm. Now we can bring this down. Right now I'm just gonna take that nut and again, just thread it up on the upper control arm just so we don't lose it. All right, now we have our truck lowered a little bit to gain access to the top of our strut. Now there's 3 nuts. If you push this liner back a bit, 1 in the front right here and then 2 at the back. Now you'll see the wire is actually mounted to the top of that, so we'll be able to pop those off in just a bit. I would definitely recommend a 16mm ratcheting wrench. I have a longer guy here to give me a little bit more leverage. This is going to make life a lot easier just ratcheting back and forth. Otherwise, you can use a regular wrench or a ratchet and socket if you can get it in there. So let's get these 3 nuts off. All right, so now I'm just reaching my hand back in here and I'm gonna wiggle back and forth the wiring harness to get them off of the stud. All right, so we got one of them off, this little clip. Just pull that back and rotate it up. Let's do the same thing on the other one. And again, I know this is tough to see, really just pushing it out of the way. All right, so now we're switching back over to our ratcheting wrench and we're gonna work off the last 2 bolts. All right, at this point, the strut is loose. We just have to get it out of position. So in order to do that, I'm gonna push down on the entire spindle lower control arm assembly, lift this guy up, and pop it out. Just like that.
All right, now that we have our factory strut removed, we're going to install the new one and we're gonna slide it up top first and get our nut started so we can hold it in place. Just on there a couple threads just to hold it in place so we can get the bottom started. All right, now that we have the bottom of our strut mounted into the knuckle, we can pull this forward or get a pull jack and pry up and push up on the lower control arm so we can get this lined up and get our bolt through. All right, to make it a little bit easier, grab the pull jack, support the lower control arm a little bit. Now we can turn up on this and hold on to our strut. Just get that lined up. All right, once you have it relatively close, you can use a hammer to tap it in. All right, once that's through, we can now remove our pull jack. Now we can attach our bolt. Tighten this down with a 24 mil on our nut side and a 21 wrench on our bolt side. Now we can come back and torque that down the spec. While we're under here, we can now thread on the bolt for our end link. Might need to pull it through a little bit just to get a couple more threads. And we can tighten this down with our 18 mil socket. Now we can install our tie rod back into our knuckle. Attach our bolt. Tighten this down with a 21 mil socket. Now we can install our upper control arm into our knuckle. You might need to use a pry bar and pry down on the control arm and get this into the knuckle. Now that we have our nut on there, we're going to tighten it down to our knuckle with our 21 mil wrench. If the ball joint starts to spin in there, you can get back on there with your pry bar and push down some tension. Now we're going to thread on our two remaining nuts for the top of the strut. We're going to push our fender liner back a little bit so we can get to it. Got one all the way back here, and one on the opposite side. Now the new hardware provided is actually going to be a 14 mil, so we're going to switch to a 14 millimeter wrench. Now we can install our wheel speed sensor and clip it back into place. All right, once you have everything installed and tightened down, you want to go back and torque everything down to spec and then repeat for the other side. All right, that wraps up our install for Eibach Pro-Truck Coil-Over Kit for 19 to 24 5.7 liter Ram 1500. Just remember, for everything Ram related, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.